everyone. If there is one thing I believe we all agree on in this room, it's that we are all chasing a dream. What if the real cost isn't the money, but in what we are sacrificing along the way? Ourselves. Even when we forget to care for our well being, our brain steps in, not to suffer, but to shield us, to keep us going until we remember to hit pause. I want to start by asking you to look at the person on your left. Now look at the person on your right. Statistically, one of you is burnt out. But what if it's all three of you? In medicine, in life, we treat burnout and sleepless nights like they're a rite of passage, a badge of honor we proudly wear to showcase our commitment. What we don't talk about enough is how this is not only emotionally exhausting, but also neurologically damaging. I know this not from studying medicine or being a neuro enthusiast, but from living it myself. As if the complexity of medicine wasn't enough to exhaust my fragile brain, circumstances led me to transfer to a new university with a completely new educational system. I arrived equipped with nothing but my already overwhelmed brain and an unreasonable level of ambition. There was a moment, one that made me stop and ask, why do I even care so much about this dream? And it wasn't some grand revelation or epiphany with dramatic music in the background. No, it was a small, quiet realization that hit me in a moment of panic. I woke up after falling asleep studying for an important exam, and I couldn't remember a thing, nothing. Nor the last chapter I was on, nor the basics of what I'm supposed to know. It's like the entire night had slipped through my fingers, and everything I spent hours cramming has evaporated into the void of my brain. That's when I started questioning. Why was I willing to sacrifice so much for something that wasn't even sustainable? Why let myself slip into the cycle? I pushed myself into such a state of exhaustion so bad to the point that not even my obnoxiously loud alarms could wake me up from. Why? That was the wake-up call that shifted my perspective and made me take minute steps towards change. Because otherwise, it's hypocritical, isn't it? The pressure and high expectations I set for myself slowly crept into every aspect of my life. I chugged on endless amounts of coffee and pulled unlimited all-nighters to the point that not even the most expensive makeup could hide my dark circles. Yet somehow, in the middle of all of that chaos, I kept trying. I kept showing up, all for the sake of a dream. And although that dream is what keeps us going, it comes with a hidden neurological cost, one that we often overlook in the pursuit of our goals, but one we must acknowledge to truly understand the full impact this journey has on us. Neuroscience tells us that the chronic stress we endure, fueled by the desire to be good enough, is rewiring our brains in ways we don't often consider. The constant exposure to cortisol, the stress hormone, does not only impact our ability to think clearly and make decisions, but also affects parts of our brain responsible for empathy and self-regulation, things that are too precious to lose. You don't need to be in healthcare to relate to what I'm saying. So let's make this real. Let's make this about all of us. Raise your hand if you often stay up past midnight trying to finish your work. Raise your hand if you consume 2 or more cups of coffee every day or any energy drinks just to stay awake. And lastly, raise your hand if you sometimes feel that the word burnout isn't just a word, but your default setting sometimes. Yeah, we're not alone. These are what I like to call the white coat taxes. They're the small sacrifices we make every day that slowly chip away at being, turning us from caregivers into casualties of our own profession. And there is no doubt we all do this for a noble cause. To me, it is to be the good doctor. But good doesn't mean being perfect. It means being human, being present, and still growing. Here's the magic I realized. We can rewrite the narrative, and it starts by allowing yourself permission to be human. I remember showing this talk to my dad a few weeks ago, and the first thing he said is, Eman, you don't even apply this in your own life. And that is the point. I am no exception. As healthcare providers, the first thing we lecture our patients and loved ones about is their well being and lifestyle. We don't even listen to our own advice. And as much as we laugh about it or take pride on who slept the least before an exam, the truth is, the impact isn't just on our psychology. It's on a much deeper neurophysiological level. So today, as you listen to my talk, let's together, yet individually, take a walk inside our brains to better understand the neuroscience behind some of the challenges we've experienced, things you may have dealt with or are currently facing. So let's talk about stress. I know, boring. But did you know that constant exposure to it can shrink your hippocampus, the part of our brain responsible for memory? And a smaller hippocampus means an impaired ability in retaining and recalling important information, making it harder to learn in demanding environments. We all know that rush we get from passing an important exam or making a difference. It is tied to the release of dopamine, one of our brain's feel-good chemicals. But when we're constantly chasing that dopamine high without a rest, our brain's reward pathways become overstimulated, leading to emotional exhaustion. Many of us here develop the habit of procrastinating until the last moment, pulling an all-nighter and sipping coffee just to finish our task. And ironically, it works. But studies show that the chronic lack of sleep affects the parts of our brain responsible for higher cognitive function, impulse control, and problem solving. Not only that, but it amplifies the activity in the amygdala, our brain's fear center, making us more anxious and irritable. And common fixes, like overconsumption of caffeine, although temporarily boosts alertness, is also shown to increase cortisol levels, further exacerbating that stress cycle. To me, this is the paradox of medicine. The more we give without a break, the more we lose. And to truly heal others, we must first understand the impact healing has on us. I'm not denying that each career comes with its own set of sacrifices and compromises, but our well-being should never be one of them. There are gentle ways to hack our brain. Self-care, stress management, and emotional boundaries aren't just nice to have, they're the very tools we need to protect ourselves from crumbling. Finding balance does not always look like some perfect morning solution or magical routine. To me, it started with the smallest choices, like setting my textbook aside and picking up a novel to remind myself I could still enjoy things outside of academia. Sometimes recovery looked like a walk in nature. Other times it's looked like laughing with people I loved or simply disappearing and allowing my brain to reset. Both are equally valid and both helped in mending me. I still burn out sometimes, but now I know how to pick myself up quicker. And that is why I can stand here today not reflecting over 6 years of stress, but on 6 years of growth, of flexibility, and of resilience. We cannot pour from a cup filled with nothing but caffeine. We cannot heal with hands that tremble from exhaustion. And we cannot offer clarity when our own minds are clouded. So if there is one thing I want you to take from my talk today, let it be this. Protect your brain. Everything you do, every dream you chase, that's where it starts. And neurons don't negotiate. And for those in healthcare, remember, the best doctors aren't the ones who give until they break. No, they're the ones who realize that true healing starts within. Thank you.